Okay, so you guys, I'm excited to get a little bit of time with you, and I really want this to be interactive. I like this kind of environment best if it's more like coaching than I'm just giving you a speech, so that I can really help in the ways you really need. So I want to start off today. I want to teach you guys some really interesting basics about getting people. We kind of think that people are so complicated. They're not. We are not that complicated. And I'm going to teach you some quick, really easy principles that make understanding people even easier. And I think this is really going to help you guys as mentors. And you'll see why as we kind of get into some of the principles. A lot of the kids that you're going to be working with sometimes are not the most confident, secure in themselves. Often they've been through a lot. And so they need us to kind of understand what might be going on in their world. And I also want you guys to be able to take what we talked about today and really know yourself better. I think one of the beautiful things about the shapes is just how it helps us to accept ourselves. And we can stop trying to be like other people and just do you and feel good about being you. So I've got a little PowerPoint. I think I'm going to throw up. We may not use it a lot, but I'm going to use it a little bit here and show you guys this. You guys can all see that fine on your devices. Okay, so first super easy principle about people. Everything we do is motivated from one of two places. It's either motivated by what we love and value most, or it's motivated by what we fear. And unfortunately, a lot of what we do is actually driven by fear. And I'll prove it to you. A lot of what we do in our life is actually, if you look kind of underneath it, it's about a search for safety, a feeling of security in the world. You think about why you have a job. You have a job so you can pay your bills, so you can feel a sense of security in the world, right? That you can take care of yourself. A lot of times we get dressed in the morning. We're picking clothes that are going to make us look good, so we feel better about who we are, so we have a sense of safety in the world. And it sucks at some level that we're so driven by fear that it's so in play a lot of the time. But understanding this about ourselves is going to actually give you more compassion, both for you and for other people. So what I want to introduce you to today is what we call the 2 core fears. And every single person on the planet, I don't care how successful and beautiful or rich or whatever they are, everybody does battle with the same 2 fears to some degree every day. And you will recognize as I start to explain them that they show up in you. And you'll also be able to tell if you're working with a teen, they're in play with these kids that we're working with. So the first fear that everybody does battle with is this fear of failure. And this really comes from a belief that started when you were a little kid, because every 5 seconds someone said, no, don't do that. Don't touch that. Don't be like that. Can't you be more like this? And unfortunately, we all kind of get this message when we're little kids that we need to be different than how we are to be enough. Did you notice that? Like if you're wild and energetic, they're always saying, can't you be calm? And if you're quiet and calm, they're saying, can't you be more assertive? You need to be more assertive. Like however we were, we got these messages that we might not be quite right. And we carry this belief with us that we might not be good enough. Everybody has it. For some of us, it's a bigger deal than others. Some of us have been through a lot of experiences in life that have made the fear even bigger, and it's become a huge issue. But I think if you guys will remember back to like junior high, high school, that time, that was a time when this fear was largely in play with you. I don't know if you guys can remember, but I remember horrifying days coming home from school crying because people didn't like me and I didn't have friends and I lost the election. And, you know, you're just constantly faced with this comparison with other people and feeling like maybe you're not quite enough. So you guys can tell we all have it. The second one, very similar, is called fear of loss. And this again started when you were a little kid. You picked up this belief that you might not be safe. Now, some of us experienced abuse, neglect, some really serious situations that really drilled into our head that we're not safe. Some of us, it was the first time your sister stole your cookie or broke your toy. You went, wait a minute, people can take from me. I got to protect myself. I gotta be defensive a little bit and protect myself from loss. And I want you to kind of expand what you think of when you think of the word loss. Most of the time people think about losing money or having people we love die. Those are really obvious losses. But actually, anything that happens to you today that is not what you wanted is a loss. If you got stuck in traffic on your way to the meeting and you're going to be late and you're stressed and upset about it, you're actually having a loss experience because life wasn't good enough. It didn't meet your expectations, and that made you feel unsafe in the world. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions about those? Can you see
them? Makes sense.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so an interesting thing, we all have both of them, but we all have one that's a bigger issue for us. We have one that's our more dominant core fear. And so I want to run some things past you about the two. And we're also just going to kind of double check that the quiz got your shape right. So as I kind of cover some of this, you may go, oh yeah, I think I'm on the other side. I think maybe you need to take the quiz again, because sometimes some of the answers we could kind of gone two ways in. So sometimes that happens. Okay, so there's two types of people in the world: fear of failure dominant and fear of loss dominant. So fear of failure dominant people, we tend to be more insecure. We tend to be people pleasers to some degree. We really want to be liked by everybody. We don't like conflict. We just want everybody happy so that we feel safe and good enough. We are really sensitive to criticism. And I will tell you guys, I am an arrow also. So I am on the fear of failure dominant side. So if you got an arrow on the test, I want you to double check that this kind of sounds like you. But criticism just cuts me apart. I try so hard to do everything well and to make everybody happy and do the right thing. And I just can't be perfect all the time. And sometimes people aren't happy with me. And that's a really painful experience if you're fear of failure dominant. Now, one of you mentioned I'm not that needy. And maybe not. You may be fear of failure dominant, but that doesn't mean it's just this debilitating thing. But you might go through times in your life when you feel more insecure. You might have been this way more as a child or as a teenager. And what might you be needy for that makes you feel safer in the world? Well, it could be attention. You could have been a little attention seeking because attention equals love and makes you feel safer. Sometimes we're needy for affection or validation. And I don't know about you guys, if you're fear of failure dominant, I think you'll be able to see, like I am, you really appreciate validation. Anybody that gives you some positive, that you're doing well and that they appreciate you and you're doing your job well, doesn't that just like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not a failure after all. I'm okay. I guess some of you, I can't see your hands. But those who are on video, raise your hand if you feel like this might sound a lot like you. Anybody else really feel like this kind of sounds like them? Maybe?
I'm raising my hand.
Okay. I got
Me too.
Awesome.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
I used to be like that a long time ago. And I think as I aged, I got not less caring, but less people pleasing. And I kind of went more to the other side. Does that happen?
That does happen. And we, every once in a while, we find people change shape. Often it's kind of because of trauma, but sometimes it can be growth and maturity. We can see some of that. The reality is that you might have been fear of loss dominant all along, but you had a lot of fear of failure in play too. And then you kind of grew out of that part. It's possible. But let me tell you what fear of loss dominant qualities kind of are. You'll see people who are a lot more opinionated. They have strong views on things because their sense of right and wrong in the world kind of forms a solid ground that they stand on, kind of makes them feel safer in the world to have strong opinions. They can be a little bit more controlling because a sense of control and having things in order and the way you think they should be definitely makes you feel safer in the world. It sounds funny, but they often have more organized closets and they need their world to be more organized than fear of failure dominant people because that sense of order makes them feel a little bit safer. They sometimes are a little more picky about how things should be and what's right and what's wrong. So they can sometimes be a little bit more critical with other people. They tend to notice what's wrong or what's not as good as it could have been because they want everything to be its best because that would make them feel safer in the world. So anybody resonating with this way of being? And you know what? We have both. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, and I think like another thing that I will add to that will be overthinking. We overthink everything because, as you mentioned, we like everything to be at its best. So before we decide to do something, we overthink of what's gonna happen if we do it that way or if we do it differently, and we just think of all the ways possible to get the better results. So we are always overthinking.
Yeah, you're totally right. You're exactly tuned in to these qualities.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else got a question about them? So far, is it lining up with the shape that you thought you were, that you're on the right side? No? Okay, because sometimes it's surprising. Now there's a couple, for example, the octagon and the diamond, they have a lot of both. They really have a lot of both. I've been working on a new quiz that we're going to have roll out pretty soon that will actually tell you the percentage that you have of fear of loss versus fear of failure. And we find a lot of people are even. They have both. Especially I see a lot of diamonds and octagons that have both. So we want to keep that in mind. Now, why would it help you to be aware that this fear can be in play in your behavior? Well, I will tell you. Most of our bad behavior, and I'm using bad in a really broad general sense because it can be insecurity, not speaking our truth, not having boundaries, but it can also be being overly controlling or bossy and even a little critical with other people. So there's lots of unbalanced behavior, but behind it all is going to be these fears. Any bad behavior, if you look behind it, you will see one or both of these fears in play. And this can really help us to have more compassion for other people and for ourselves. Because when I meet somebody who's a little bit controlling and they might be a little critical or bossy with me, instead of seeing them as just this critical, bossy person, I recognize that they're scared, just like me. We all are. We all worry that we're not enough and that we're not safe in the world. At times throughout every day, those come in play. And this person is just like me. They have fear in play too. And so I can have a lot more compassion for them. It also helps me understand what I'm feeling. So if I am getting a little controlling with people, I recognize that I've got a fear of loss around this situation. What is that really about for me? What am I afraid I'm going to lose? And tonight, I would like to teach you guys a few ways to maintain your balance, to not have these fears driving, but to get yourself out of a fear state and in a more balanced state where you can show up at your best. One of the problems with fear is when it's driving, your focus is on your own safety, which means your focus is on you. Does that make sense? It becomes all about what you need. And what we lose access to is our love to show up and really be able to serve others in those moments. And when we were actually talking about the mentoring, I was thinking, I've been training coaches, people how to be a personal coach for 20 years. And one of the biggest challenges to being a really great coach or mentor is when your own fear gets in the way, because you are worried about whether you're doing a good job, whether you're being a good mentor, and are you impressing them, or are you delivering what they need? And the moment you start to get insecure and worried about how you're performing, this is now about you and not about them, right? And this is very human nature for all of us to experience that. That fear of failure is in us all the time. And so it's something, if you can become aware that that might be an issue for you, and make the commitment as you go into this mentoring space that you're not going to worry about yourself and how you come across or whether you do a good job. This is about fully being present to show up and hear and understand this other person and know what they're feeling. And I want you to be able to kind of be in trust that the answers that you might need to help them, they're going to come. But the true answers that this person needs, even as a teenager, chances are very likely they have the answer inside themselves. That's the way the universe works. It doesn't give you a problem without giving you access to the solution. And so we can really be in trust that as we show up and we help these kids gain more confidence and learn how to quiet their fears, that the answer part will come. It's the love and the being able to show up genuinely in a space to hold space for them and not have it be about you. That's the hard part. And that's our number one job. Does that make sense? Okay. So just from a sort of mental health standpoint, we find that it makes everything really simple if you assume there's only two states that you can function in. So all day long, you're in one of two places. You're either in a fear state where you're kind of feeling like you might not be good enough or you might not be safe, and so you're stressed. And in this state, it's going to be more about you, and you're not going to have access to your love at the same level. Or you're in a clear state where the fear is out of the way and you can show up and be your best. And so tonight I want to teach you some things about how to get yourself balanced from fear, out of fear. And these very well might be really, really valuable things that you could help share with the kids that you're going to mentor. The biggest thing that is going to hold them back in life is their fears that they're not good enough, and their fear that they're not safe in the world, and that they need to be defensive and protect themselves. If we can help them find some inner balance, you've given them a head up to do anything that they want to do in life. So I think that's a good place to start. For you guys, though, where does some fear come up for you about stepping into this role as a mentor? What scares you about it? Would anybody be willing to share?
I think for me, it's not being able to answer, say they have some questions and not having the right answer or saying the right thing.
Yeah, right. And that could be both fears in play. There's a little failure and a little loss in that, isn't that? I can see both of them.
Sometimes it's, for me, one of my fears, because I have encountered, and I do encounter it so often when trying to be supportive to another person, is their circumstance. You have no control over their circumstance and their home environment. And sometimes you hear about their past. It's just hard. And I pray for the right words, but just not being able to offer them that security or whatever that they're missing and that they're needing, and not being able to give that to them.
Yeah. No doubt that you're going to hear about some situations that are painful and difficult that there's nothing you can do to help them with.
And also boundaries, I guess. There's just those boundaries that sometimes it gets really hard. You want to find them and link them and network and to better support them. But I always tell myself, would you do this with anyone, or is just this person because of what they shared with you? And that's hard for me.
It's a hard part, especially if you're a really empathetic shape and you can feel that pain that other people are in. It's hard, isn't it? One of the reasons Terry asked me to work with you guys today, I do a lot of work in Mexico with some orphanages and homes for children in need. And I've got one of our homes that's all girls that are teenagers rescued from trafficking. And I find myself often in this situation because there's nothing I can do to fix most of what's going on. But in that moment that I have to spend that time with that person, I've got an opportunity to show them somebody sees goodness and magic and value in them. And you cannot believe sometimes that the small amount of that makes such a huge difference in somebody's life when they haven't had anybody that believed in them, that saw their value, that's cheering them on. And even if it's only for a few moments that you get to be that person, it matters. It matters, but I know it's hard. Okay, as we get into my solutions to pull us out of fear, I'm going to give you some other ideas on both of those things. Does anybody have another one? Something else that scares you about doing this?
Yeah, like, what if you go to the project and you don't know what to talk about? You're not like you could just talk a little bit about like when you're done with everything you're supposed to do. Like, how can we easily connect and bond on that level that we're supposed to be?
Okay, I love that too, Terry. So we'll talk about some ways to kind of go deeper with conversation. I find with my coaches sometimes if a conversation gets awkward and we don't know what to do, what's the fear in that moment? What are we afraid of? Is it looking
I'm not doing a good job?
Not doing a good job, right? Some failure. Yeah. So as we talk about how we're going to get out of that fear, I'm going to give you some solutions. So I've got that one written down too. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm afraid that, first of all, that they won't like me. And second of all, that they won't do their work, because I think that on the fear of loss, that's the controlling side of me, and being maybe overly critical and just being like, seriously, you didn't do it, and being able to help my reaction to that, because here at work, if somebody doesn't do something, that there's a different reaction than a teenager that's just trying to gain your experience and wisdom.
Oh, I love it. Okay. I got some good answers for these. We're going to have some fun with this. Okay. So I'm going to jump ahead for a minute. Let's see. So where I really want to spend my time is the how to get out of fear, because in those moments when fear gets you, I do want you to know how to get out. And these are actually going to be the answers also to a lot of these questions. Does it make sense to you guys that fear is all about how you're looking at this moment?
Yes.
It looks scary. It looks like your value's in question. It looks like this could go bad. And it has so much to do with the way you're looking at it. And so today, I'm going to give you some paradigm shifts to look at things from a different direction that can completely change how you feel. You're in the same situation, but it looks different. But in order to change our perception, we actually have to change the beliefs, because it is your core beliefs that are creating this perception of fear. So remember, I mentioned if you've got fear of failure, you have the belief that you might not be good enough. Okay, what we've discovered is that there's another belief that sits underneath the fear that you might not be good enough and actually creates it. And the real belief, that's the problem, that every single human you know has this belief. It's the belief that human value changes. And I want you to think about it for a minute. We all think that if we could just lose some weight, make more money, be more successful, have our act more together, that we would earn more value, our value would go up and we could feel like we're as good as other people finally. Can you guys sense at the subconscious level that you believe that? And we also believe we lose value. Every time we screw up, we feel less than other people. So we don't consciously choose to see human value this way, but we have learned it from the world. The way things have looked your whole life, it appears that some humans have more value than other humans. And unfortunately, if you believe human value can change at all, then you also believe that some humans have more value than others. And can you guys tell that that belief is the cause for almost all the problems on the planet? All of them. We can take it back to people feeling less than other groups of people or better than other groups of people. And we can look at 100 differences that where we use it, but it is the core problem on our planet that we believe some humans have more value than others. But is that a fact or is it a belief? Is there a source we could go to that ultimately tells you exactly what your value is compared with other people?
No, how do you measure that?
You
How do
can't.
you measure someone's value? I mean, it's going to be an opinion every time.
Yeah, it's all belief. It's
Okay,
all
I'm going to play the devil's advocate. What about a murderer? Kim, explain that.
I will.
Or do something worse. I don't even know what. Like,
you're jumping ahead though, Terry, because you know what comes next. We haven't said that. I haven't even talked about that they're the same yet. So hold your question 1 minute. Okay. She's so funny because she knows my stuff so well, which I love. Okay. So literally we have found the answer to low self-esteem, and I've been looking for it for 30 years in personal development. How do we help people with self-esteem? Believe it or not, it's a lot more simple than you think. We have to change the most foundational belief you have about the value of all human beings. And if you get to change your belief, you can change it to anything you want. So we played around with this a lot, and we found the best belief possible is that human value is all the same. Every human soul has the exact same value, and it cannot change. And I don't care how much weight you lose or how much money you make, you still have the exact same intrinsic worth as every other human soul on this planet. Every human soul is a one of a kind, irreplaceable, the only one there will ever be of you. And this material that we're made of, this human soul, it is the most valuable thing on the planet. Human beings have created everything in this world that exists. We are amazing at what we can do. And the idea that any human soul has more worth than any other, you can have that belief if you want, but you don't have to have it if you want to get rid of it. So I teach this all the time. I get to go to the juvenile detention center and teach this principle to the kids. And it's a mind blow when they come up and say, wait a minute, you mean all I have to do is decide that it's my new belief that all humans have the same value, and then all the mistakes I've made, they don't mean anything. I have the same value as you. Yep. And you have the power to do it. You have to commit to a new belief that all human beings have the same worth. You guys, there is nothing more valuable that we could teach these kids or anybody in your world that you get a chance to share with than that they have the power to see all human beings as the same. Now, Terry jumps in and asks me about murderers. I usually always have one student like, what about Hitler? You telling me Hitler has the same value as the rest of us? Yeah, I am. I'm going to take a firm stand that we're going to give it to everybody. Now, Hitler and murderers, they're having an interesting human journey on this planet. They are signing themselves up for some interesting lessons, and hopefully they're going to learn some things from these lessons. They are also teaching things to the rest of the world. If we don't have evil, we don't really understand good. We've got a huge spectrum of choices and ways of living, and they all teach all of us. And I really believe the reason that we're on the planet, and I've worked with people all over this world, no matter their religion or belief or culture, all of us feel it's truth that we are on this planet to grow and learn and evolve. If you're an atheist, you still believe that human life is evolving, and that means we're still here in learning and growth. But most people with spiritual belief really believe that we're on the planet to improve ourselves and grow and learn, right? It's a really shared belief that we all have. And we can be in a process of learning and growing, yet it is a classroom. It is not a test to determine your value and compare your score with other people. Nobody who ever lives is going to have the same journey that you got. No one will have your genes from your ancestors and your family that they came into and go through the experiences that life has brought you. You're the only one in that class. So we can't compare our journey with anybody else. We all have a completely different journey, but the exact same value. Does that make sense? And Terry, the other reason we can't make any exceptions is it's such a slippery slope. The minute you say murderers, okay, we're going to say they're not good enough. You end up, oh yeah, but we're going to throw in my neighbor down the street who's grouchy to everybody, and my mother-in-law because she does this, and pretty soon you're right back to where you were. So it's a world-changing principle if we just give it to everybody. How do you guys feel about that? Now, you can probably tell it's not changing your self-esteem right now in the moment forever. This is a belief that's very deeply ingrained into your subconscious programming that human value can change and some are better than others. It's one we're going to have to work at. It's going to have to be a daily choice that we make 100 times a day. And I want kids and all of us in this practice where every time we do something stupid and we say the wrong thing and stick our foot in our mouth, or we trip in front of people and we look like an idiot, those are the moments we get to say, okay, interesting lesson, didn't change my value. I still have the same value as every other soul on the planet because you can't have anything other than that. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you've made or the family you come from or what color you are. We have the same intrinsic value if we choose to see it this way. Any questions? Okay, I want you to just sit with that one. We're going to talk about fear of loss for a minute, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to apply these to all your questions that you brought up. Okay. So the way we get out of fear of failure, though, is we choose to trust that all humans have the same value. So let's talk about fear of loss. Again, fear of loss is coming from a belief that you're not safe in the world. And again, there is another belief underneath the belief that you're not safe in the world. And the belief that is that life is random chaos. And let me tell you why we all think it's random chaos. We believe everybody is out there making choices, and they can cut me off in traffic, and they can gossip about me, they can hurt me. This is chaos gone wild. We've got billions of people out here all making choices, whatever they want. Of course you would feel at risk, right? Your life could be ruined. The quality of your life could be messed up every day. We have to protect ourselves from all these people. Can you feel where the fear of loss comes from in all this chaos? But let me ask you this. How often do things happen that are synchronicities that you're like, weird? It seems like the universe knows what it's doing. Have you ever been at the right place at the right time, or had things fall in place that are just crazy? Do you ever feel like things happen for a reason? You are.
Okay, tell us again how we can find out more about you and where we can buy the book. If people who are watching this on YouTube later, they want to buy the book, where is that? Okay,
so 12shapes.com that you guys went to is one place. My other website is claritypointcoaching.com. And I've got other books and lots of other resources and stuff from there. claritypointcoaching.com.
You're the best.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. You guys are all amazing, too. Thanks for volunteering.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good night, you guys.